Hello and welcome to another episode of Tell Great Stories, the podcast that looks back at some of Unbound Theatre's past projects and productions. Today we're discussing 3 rehearsed readings the company has performed. A Number by Carol Churchill, The Hypochondriac by Molière, and Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest. My name is Jo Pratt and I'm joined by some of the actors, a director and producers who've worked on these productions. So if we just introduce ourselves.
Hello, I'm Dario Knight. I'm the director of a couple of these and also the producer.
Hi, I'm Gareth. I think I've been involved in some way, shape or form in all 3 of the rehearsed readings. I was acting in A Number, did a couple of roles in Hypochondriac and helped out with live sound effects and sort of Foley artistry in Importance of Being Earnest.
Foley artiste, Gareth.
Foley artiste, oh yes.
Yeah. Foley artiste,
Foley artiste.
absolutely.
Very nice, yes. Hi, sorry, I'm Andy. I directed Importance of Being Earnest and I was in a rehearsed reading of A Number with Gareth in the anniversary show that we did.
Lovely. And last but not least, Kati.
Oh, that's a lovely intro, Jo. Thank you. I'm Kati and I was in The Importance of Being Earnest.
Wonderful. Thank you. So to start us off, Dario, for those who haven't seen one before, can you explain briefly what is a rehearsed reading and what's the appeal of producing them?
Well, I suppose in one respect it does exactly what it says on the tin. So you're not watching what we might call a full production. The actors haven't memorised the scripts. They're reading their lines but still having rehearsed the script to get the characterisation and the pace right for the play. There are different ways of staging them, as I'm sure we'll talk about during the course of this, but typically a rehearsed reading won't have a full set with lighting and sound. The actors may or may not be in costume, they might just be in stage blacks. There's a lot of reasons for doing them, really. They're comparatively much faster to produce than a fully staged show, naturally, so we can turn these around in a couple of weeks rather than several months. And that means we can do more productions each year and we can create more opportunities for actors, which is really cool. Because they're fast, they have this fantastic sense of spontaneity about them, and there's a real drive, which is great to kind of put between the larger shows, which take months to rehearse and almost a year to produce. And the planning stages can go on for quite a long time. And the other thing I think, and actors, please do feel free to chip in, I think it's really great that you can concentrate on the casting and play around with the casting a bit more because you don't have to worry about visuals, just the voice. So things like an actor's playing age don't really come into it, and there's a real sense of liberation in that. You can have a 20-something playing a character who's 60 years old and vice versa, and you perhaps wouldn't do that in a full production, but with a rehearsed reading, because you're just concentrating on the script, you then get a chance to do some quite interesting and unusual casting. And really it's just fun to take a play and strip it right back down to the words that are at the heart of it, and then examine them in a slightly fresh way where you're not having to worry about the technical aspects of staging and the presentation quite so much.
Oh, yeah, interesting. Thank you. Gareth, a Number was the first rehearsed reading that Unbounded in 2017. Many people listening may not have seen the play before. Can you say a little bit about what it's about and what appealed to you about it as an actor?
Yeah, so when I sort of first received the script for A Number and read through it, I found it absolutely fascinating and just knew that this was something I wanted to do. And it was brilliant to be able to do it originally in full with Pete Benson. It was brilliant to work with him, and then I got to reprise it again, one of the scenes for the anniversary show with the lovely Mr. Andy Faber. So I've not only worked on a brilliant script, but worked with some brilliant people on it as well. The thing about the script for A Number is it is bizarre. It's based on the premise that it's all about the relationship between this guy Salter and his many sons, who are one of many clones that have been made. which they initially don't know about, but the play starts off just as, what I would call Salter's main son, as it were, finds out that he is a clone. And then, later the original comes back in, and it sort of explores all kinds of themes like genetic determinism and how different the two sons turn out to each other. And then they sort of go into, there's actually, as the title would suggest, a number of these clones. And again, how different they are, how similar they are, how much of how the first son turned out is down to Salter's upbringing of him. And that really gets explored really nicely, just what must be going on in Salter's head as these many different sons come in. And I played the son, and Pete/Andy played Salter, the father. And it's brilliant to be able to play what is essentially genetically the same character, but very, very different. And throughout the course of the play, you're sort of playing the same character but different, and then you've really got to have fun with how that might change you physically, how it might change you vocally. So a brilliant play to perform. And the other thing about Carol Churchill plays is she has a very strong grasp of natural language. A lot of plays, you've got sort of play language, and it feels linguistically very good, but maybe slightly unnatural at times. Whereas Carol Churchill's writing really focuses on natural language and sort of incomplete thoughts and lots of overlapping dialogue where the thought isn't even finished before it gets overlapped, which can make it a challenge to get your point across, but makes it fascinating to do.
Dario, the second production was the Hypochondriac, which you directed. This one featured a lot more staging than a number or Importance of Being Earnest. What were the reasons for that approach? And can you also say a little bit about what the play's about, for those that don't know it?
So the Hypochondriac is a Molière play. It's also known as The Imaginary Invalid. And it's about a man named Argan, who is the eponymous hypochondriac, who's running up all manner of medical bills for his ever-increasing list of ailments. And so he hatches this plan to marry his daughter off to a doctor so that he can then get free medical advice. And it's got elements of farce about it. There's a lot of coming and going, rushing in and out. It's surprisingly, for a play that's centuries old, it's got quite a lot of satire in it about private medical care. And it's brilliantly funny. It is, even now, it's really fun to do. And when we presented it, we found ourselves, because it has that quite chaotic, farcical energy to it, adding in quite a bit of blocking and physicality seemed to be the way we needed to go, because it felt like we were really missing something if we didn't. And over I think we did it in about 2 weeks, maybe 2.5, 3 weeks. Over the time we were rehearsing it, we found that you could bring in a lot more traditional elements of staging without compromising the fact it was a reading. So we gave everyone some basic costume out of the stock at Queen's Park and put together a bit of scenery to decorate the stage. And I think ultimately, I suppose, you respond to the text itself. It's a perfect play to do as a reading because it's got some amazing dialogue and really great jokes. But to do it justice, it needed that sense of movement and colour and vibrancy, because it's such a bright play. And because we've been able to gradually build up this stock of furniture and props and costumes at Queen's Park Arts Centre, we could put something together on zero budget, which was a relief, because we just done Panto, which is always a bit costly. And so all of these props that people see in the storeroom and do say to them, why on earth do you keep that? Why have you got a load of candlesticks? What do you need them for? Suddenly they come in handy again when you've got a set to build and you haven't got a budget.
So I remember sort of some of the props for that play, and I remember one of them, I was playing sort of the assistant doctor, and you come in with this thing and you're basically saying you're going to give Argon a suppository or a colonic irrigation, I think it was, or one of those things. And I can't remember what we got, but we just got this device that looked like it was used for pumping water. I remember marching on towards Alistair with it, going, exactly how far are we taking this prop, by the way?
I think it's one of those pump action sprayer things for the garden, which I genuinely think we use at Queen's Park for the weeds in the car park.
Oh, good.
So it's always the way at Queen's Park. Everything has a second use.
Yeah.
Everything has a second use. And I mean, it's one of those shows a bit like the anniversary show, and I'm sure it'll be the same for Funny Voices, which we're working on at the minute, where it'll be every prop you've ever seen will be in there somewhere, just decorating the space. It's a nice trip down memory lane to go, oh, I remember that from 5 years ago, wherever it was. So yeah, we pushed that one a lot more towards a stage production as a one-off, really, because it just instinctively felt like it needed it to work, compared to something like a number which didn't really need anything but 2 voices, or 4, given Gareth's multiple roles in that one. So yeah, that's how it came about, really. I think you always respond to the text as best you can, and that one just seemed to warrant a bit more chaos, I think.
Yeah. And again, as well as the props, the movement in it was brilliant in that, because I think we had dancing, and as you say, you have characters sort of zooming on and off, and you have a lot of sort of interaction with Alistair's character, Argon, who was on sort of for most of the play, but then you've got everyone else sort of zooming about around him, and I think you've got his I think it was his maid, possibly, or I don't know exactly what the...
Yes, Toinette.
Yes, Toinette, the maid. Again, she's sort of totally dancing around him, both physically and literally. And again, sort of we brought that to life, and then again brought it back for the anniversary show again, which was brilliant to see. I think it was Alice playing Toinette and Alistair still playing Argon, just sort of wheeling him around the stage and doing circles around him. Just a brilliant piece of physical movement in what is also a rehearsed reading.
So did that take a bit longer to, because you mentioned, Dario, about rehearsed readings, you'd be able to stage them quite quickly, or put them on quite quickly, but this is somewhere just kind of a hybrid between the two. How long did it take you to create it?
I can't really remember. I think it was around 2 to 3 weeks. I don't think we had a lot of extra time. We might have called an extra evening rehearsal just to give us a bit of extra time, but I don't remember it taking much longer. It seemed to flow so naturally out of what we were doing that the movement didn't feel like something we had to go back and put in. So right from the off, it was there. It was a bit more involved because everyone's got to take a lot more notes, but I have to say the cast were fantastic, and led by Alistair really responded to it well. So funnily enough, it didn't take a great deal longer, but we did. I mean, it was a very quick turnaround, but everyone was really good. I think you get that in a sense, a bit of energy having just finished Panto. We did this in February 2019. Between Panto and then starting on Antony and Cleopatra, it was this little period where it was so fun to get everyone in working on a great play for 3 weeks, really fast, really funny, and everyone had so much energy to do it that it came together really quickly. So no, it's interesting to actually didn't take that much longer, but I think because the play itself is so physical and requires a lot of movement, it's just there from the off, really, rather than adding it retrospectively.
Cool. So moving to the Importance of Being Earnest, that was performed in February 2020, and was one of the last productions that we did before lockdown. So Andy, what are the benefits of revisiting such a well-known play as a reading rather than doing a full production, do you think?
Well, I think actually one of my favourite parts of it is that because we didn't have to bother with so much the blocking and the costume, we could really drill down to the language and the voices, especially the voices. Those who are in it will remember my tortuous exercises, which I hope helped in the end. They sort of, sorry, Katie, yes, you remember that. But no, I have to say, it really it was lovely just to actually concentrate completely on the script. I mean, with Wilde, it's one of the few. He's one of the few playwrights that you don't actually have to touch a thing. It's all there, and we really got the chance to absolutely play around with every comma and every breath. To watch everyone's performances lift hugely. I was sort of thinking of actually Dario's comment earlier about sort of playing ages when you're doing such a thing. The lady who played oh gosh, I can't embarrass myself now.
Lady Bracknell.
Lady Bracknell, yes. Lady Bracknell is supposed to be in her late 50s, 60s, but Ellie, who played it, is in her 20s. You certainly wouldn't know that from her vocal performance. but it was a great experience. And also, of course, Kati playing Miss Prism. Miss Prism is indeed supposed to be in her, well, I think 50s really, but Kati is not. But vocally, both of them absolutely nailed it. We absolutely got their characters, their ages, their personality types, just from sitting reading, which I thought was marvellous. Yes, I think it was a really good chance to be very forensic and picky, which I like. Anyone who's will know. But yes, yeah.
So, Kati, playing Miss
Yes.
Prism, how was the creative process? I mean, how does it differ when you're working on a reading compared to a full play?
Well, the main things really is one, you don't have to learn the lines for a start. You need to be familiar with them. Obviously, you can't sit there and pause while you turn the page, and everyone's thinking you should really have known what's coming next, really. And there's less of a time commitment usually. With it seems to be these things are done in very few rehearsals, and then you get them onto the stage. So there is a different process in that you've got the script in front of you. You can write all over it manically. If you're doing an accent, which obviously Oscar Wilde, I think all of us had some sort of accent in there, but you can sort of,
there was a lot of that.
You can mark on there sort of which accent you're doing and how to say sort of various different things. So the process is slightly different in preparation. And also, I think, as Dario mentioned, because quite often you get to play characters that you are outside of your normal playing age or your normal repertoire, I suppose. So you get to investigate people that you wouldn't necessarily normally look at for yourself. So you don't have to worry so much about the physicality, but just getting it across somehow. How would you play a 50-year-old Scottish woman?
Concentrating, like you say, on the vocals.
Yeah.
So is there something that you particularly enjoy about the process, or is there anything that makes it particularly challenging when you're just doing a reading?
One of the things I really enjoyed was normally when you're in a production, you see the whole of the production, obviously, while you're in rehearsals. But there is something different about when you finally do that in front of an audience. There's something about the feedback from the audience and the reaction of the audience make people lift what they've been doing before. And what I really liked, because Andy staged it where we had everybody on stage all the time, you almost got to watch the actual performance for free because you were on the stage. Even though you weren't in the scenes, you could watch it with the audience, which I really liked, rather than sort of being backstage frantically trying to find a drink and where your wig is or something. But then equally, that was also something was a bit challenging because you were on stage all the time. So you had to react but not draw focus. So you were on the stage in the background. You couldn't suddenly go, oh my God, and fall off the chair. But you couldn't just start playing with your phone or something like that. You still had to be present and watching it. Luckily, it's a very good play, so it's fine. You didn't have to worry about that too much. But also, personally, going back to the accent, often I've found when I'm trying to do an accent beforehand, you might have a phrase or something to get into the accent, but you're on stage, so you can't do that. So you almost have to just sit there and go, right, any minute now I'm going to come out with this word. I really hope I'm not going to come out with the wrong accent. Go. So, yeah. So there was
toes.
Yeah, exactly. It was kind of a double-edged sword, I suppose.
And I mean, asking all of you, when you look back at the three readings, do you have some favourite memories from the productions?
I think with A Number, that first scene where the original Bernard comes in and you sort of see this other version of the sun, that is a really special scene for me, and we repeated it at the anniversary show with Andy. And it's just so intense at times, the sort of the tension between the two characters on stage, and it really builds to some great moments. You sort of, I think even in the reading bit where we weren't doing blocking, we still sort of slammed the table and really got in each other's faces. Yeah. And then when we did it in the anniversary show, we obviously added a bit of blocking where again you just build the physicality and the words of that tension. But that for me was a brilliant scene, and I was so glad to be able to do it again.
Yeah, I loved it. It was super. Yeah, incredibly intense. Yeah, so I know in the blocking of it, we started out very far apart from each other, and of course by the end of it, we were face to face, literally nose to nose, weren't
Yeah.
we? It was absolutely
face to face across the table,
Yes.
slamming down.
Oh, much slamming.
Brilliant.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were the days, face to face.
Oh, I remember that.
We'll do
No.
I
that.
remember faces.
Oh.
Oh, good times. Screens just aren't the
They're
same.
not. No.
I look back at the video of Antony and Cleopatra the other week, and I genuinely found myself going, "Oh, they're not social distancing."
They touched.
It's awful now. I look back going, "Oh, can't do that."
Yeah. It's amazing how you kind of absorb, isn't it, when you're like moving to make sure you're keeping 1.5 meters between you and anybody else whilst you're also acting.
Yes, that's true.
I think in terms of other memories, for Hypochondriac, I remember coming up with some of the visual jokes being really fun, because we not only did we do the blocking that's there in the script, but we added stuff as well. And Alistair and Alice, who played Argan and Toinette, have the most phenomenal amount of energy between them. They are like a whirlwind, and so they had all these scenes together, and their physical comedy is fantastic. And there was a chance to experiment with that in the rehearsal room, and we had a whole running gag about Argan insisting he needs a wheelchair, even though he clearly doesn't because he's not ill. And Toinette would constantly either be throwing him out of it, or Alice used to push him around the stage randomly so that he couldn't see or hear what was going on, just to wind him up. Not Alistair, I mean Argan. And she was constantly kind of throwing him or shoving him off stage or whatever. And it wasn't long after we finished Panto, and that's always exhausting and unwieldy as a project. So it was really great to do something that fun and, no pun intended, freewheeling, without all the pressure of the technical problems of something like Panto, where you've got 12 dancers on stage, you've got an entire cast, and you've got to be careful how you move. That was really fun. And Alice certainly had a whale of a time, I seem to recall, just wheeling Alistair around.
Yeah, I remember I came to watch it, and I just actually, the thing that struck me was that actually how naturalistic and the flow was, given that the fact that they were actually reading it from a script. After a little while, it didn't worry you at all, actually. The whole thing flowed extremely quickly and extremely well. I'm not advocating that everything should be done like that, but actually it really worked. It really worked very, very well indeed. Yeah.
Do you think audiences react the same or get the same out of a rehearsed reading as a full production?
I think so. Certainly the feedback we've had has been really good.
Yeah.
For all three of them that we've done. It is always a slightly nerve-wracking experience putting them on, because you're worried people are going to come along not having read the poster properly, thinking it is a full production of the play, and are then going to walk off. Fortunately, that's never happened. But the feedback we've had, particularly I remember for Ernest, some were saying there were so many jokes that they had sort of forgotten about or never really noticed before in the script, that because you're only focusing on the words, they then got a lot more from it. And I of the three plays, it was the one I knew best before we did it.
Yeah.
And even I was going, I don't remember that bit. There's the bit that I saw, my favourite jokes in the whole play is Miss Prism's line about saying, "Don't speak disparagingly about the 3-volume novel." So I wrote one myself in my youth. I don't know why, but I just find the idea of the 3-volume novel such a funny phrase. I don't know why. But I'd never really noticed that in the play before. And that was one of my favourite jokes. And again, I think because you're not, in a sense, distracted by all the grand costumes and scenery, you do pay a lot more attention to the jokes and the words. And the three plays are all very wordy. I don't know that it would work for every play. No. But it's certainly, I think we've picked ones that really lent themselves quite well to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important thing sort of to keep in mind, that the rehearsed readings are what they are. You know, that they are rehearsed readings. They are done that way. Yes, there's all the things about it. You can put more content out. You can do them in a quicker period, but they are selected to be good for rehearsed readings and to play into the strengths of that medium. So I think it's a mistake to think of the rehearsed reading as full production with stuff taken out. It really is its own thing that stands on its own merits, and they're selected so they work for that reason.
Yeah, like a radio play almost, isn't it? Really, it's designed in a different way, isn't it, for that sense?
Yeah.
Well, that's it. And I know that with Ernest, I don't know about the other two, but we didn't have anyone reading out the stage directions or anything like that. It was still visual in that sense. You didn't have somebody. I mean, you had Gareth there making tea loudly in the background, which was fantastic. But so I think if you did have a very busy play, maybe with a lot of stage direction and a lot of things like that, and you didn't have that visual thing, I don't know if you'd want someone reading now, 3 pages of stage direction.
No, especially if it's a Burton Shaw, you'd be there forever, wouldn't you?
No, oh God.
Yes, I could see actually how that certainly would detract. You can see, yes, I mean, absolutely, that certainly wouldn't help, I don't think, would it, having someone redoing all that?
Yeah, and it works without.
Yeah, I suppose that's more of that's like a table read, isn't it? More inclined to that. Whereas we never had, certainly for a number and a Hypochondriac, we didn't have anyone reading them out. Mind you, then I think we inadvertently picked plays that didn't have a great deal of stage directions in them. Carol Churchill particularly is very, very sparing with stage directions. As Gareth said, her dialogue is so naturalistic. She doesn't tend to break it up with action a great deal. It is really two people talking in the most. Anyone who's interested in writing good dialogue should absolutely read Carol Churchill plays, because she's incredible. She quite often doesn't have punctuation. She won't capitalize words.
Yes, that's true.
She doesn't tend to indicate where interruptions happen, but she makes you work, I think, as a director and as an actor. But once you really get your ear attuned to it, she has the most incredible naturalistic dialogue. It really does replicate the way people speak, the way they don't necessarily say what they mean, or they're constantly trying to make one point but never getting there, and the way they contradict themselves. But that wasn't really needed in that one. And Hypochondriac, I think, because we did add in the various bits of action, but there's not a lot in there, actually. I think it is mainly just the dialogue. So we've always picked them as plays we knew would work as rehearsed readings, rather than sort of picking a play and then going, I suppose we'll just do it like that.
That's it.
Do you have any plays that you've kind of got in mind as one that you'd really like to do as rehearsed reading in the future?
I think, kind of having mentioned Bernard Shaw, I read at the start of the year, I believe he is now out of copyright. I think the copyright on his plays has expired. So that might be quite fun to look at one of his, but to be able to edit it down perhaps so that you haven't got quite so many stage directions and you haven't got all that. Something like Pygmalion would be good fun.
That would be good, yes. If you trim that a bit, that would work very well, actually, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because obviously when they're in copyright, you're not allowed to touch them. Even if you're doing rehearsed reading, you've got to produce them in full. So I think he would be quite fun. Or, maybe something new. Rehearsed readings are also really good for new writing. If you're testing something out, or you're wanting to get a reaction before you take it to the full staged version, it can be great fun. So maybe something completely new, or a adaptation of a novel or something. It'd be interesting to play around with them.
Yeah, that could be interesting, adapting a book.
Yeah. Yes, actually, I think what it would have to be it'd be a lot of work, but Tristan Shanley by Lawrence Stern. I spent most of the year, a couple of years ago, trying to get into a production of that, and it is literally the sort of mind flow of a chap who you literally we are present at his conception and his birth as well as his life. It is the most extraordinarily strange, odd piece, but normally it's presented by one actor playing many parts, but it would actually make a very, very good group reading. I think it would be impossible to stage because it happens in so many different places and times. But there are so many odd, bizarre, random ideas that come from it that as you read it, you start slightly bowled over. I think that would work very well as a semi-visualised reading. I think that'd be rather fun. It would take an awful lot of doing, though. I think that you'd have to sort of have a very clever writer with nothing to do for 8 months to sort of adapt it. But I think bits of it, I think, would work very well. Yeah.
If only we'd thought of that before lockdown.
Exactly. Yes.
Someone could have spent the last year doing it. Damn.
Yes. Don't know how this is going along for, but take that. Do your best.
Well, thanks, guys. That's interesting hearing about those rehearsed readings, and it sounds like there could be some more in future, which is something to look forward to. Anybody got any last things you'd like to comment?
I think we haven't given full due to Gareth's Foley skills. In
No.
earnest.
That is true, and also I have to say, Gareth is an actor as well as many other very talented things, but he did the thing which actually most actors might. If I'd have been doing that, I would have been dreadful because I would have attempted to steal the show. But Gareth did not steal the show doing that. You absolutely kept it. You kept the level of your interaction and your interruptions exactly right. And myself, I would have been a complete tart and done things to it. But you didn't. I've done too much panto in my life, I think. But you didn't, and I think that's an important thing, because if you have physical stuff, sometimes you will have to do. It's so easy to lose the balance and lose the focus. But no, it was spot on. So, a belated thank you.
Did you have a favourite sound effect, Gareth?
Ooh, a favourite. Rummaging through the sort of the luggage and the bags. That was quite a fun one, where it's just sort of.
Oh yes.
You mentioned what's that noise upstairs, and then you sort of dive to this set of bags and just start, throwing them randomly about, shaking them, trying to create as much disturbance as possible.
This enormous noise had to be made. Yes, yeah.
I mean that was the one time where it's sort of we're really gonna go for it now.
Yes.
But yeah, just it was just great fun to do, sort of to look through the script and sort of look through it and think, what are the points where we need to do something, or where we can just have that little bit of stuff that helps to bring it to life. So for me, the creative process of figuring out what to do and when was actually really, really interesting. Almost more so than doing it itself, was figuring out what to put in, where stuff can go, where stuff can fit.
Yeah.
Which was brilliant to be able to do that.
And your Foley skills came back, I remember, from Three Tall Women, because you had to break a glass, didn't you, at the backstage in that one?
I did have to break a glass in Three Tall Women, so
it's a whole new career. This,
it's certainly developing. I was terrified of breaking that glass in Three Tall Women. Because literally, it's just this bucket full of broken glass and a hammer, and you're like, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, God. Wow.
Although rather ahead of the curve, you were wearing a mask at the time, so we were very, very safe.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Foley skills is basically making noise. Is that right?
Yes, so Gareth performed the sound effects for Being Earnest on stage. So he was there with a couple of tables with props. I can't remember what else. There was a tea set, I think, with little cups and saucers.
Yes, there was quite a bit of careful and genteel pouring of tea.
Yeah, there was tea and biscuits.
There was the books was a great fun one to do, where sort of you're throwing books down. I think there was 2 occasions where books were being thrown down.
Yeah, you were rummaging through books. We had to have the noise of rummaging through a bookcase.
And just this almighty thump, as sort of someone said. I can't remember what exactly the cue line was, but they're basically throwing the book down, and this almighty thump on the table. Great fun to do that. And then we had a couple of visual moments, like the I particularly enjoyed the diaries, where the two Gwendolyn and
Cecily.
Cecily, yes.
Yeah, Gwendolyn and Cecily are talking about their diaries, and we've got this book to represent them. And on one page, it's got Cecily's diary, Ernest proposed, written on it. Oh, spoilers.
100-year-old spoilers.
And then Gwendolyn says, oh, well, it also says the same in my diary. And we'd pre-prepped this book so that on the next page was Gwendolyn's diary, Ernest proposed. And you sort of hold up the book with Cecily's diary, and then as soon as Gwendolyn says hers, you turn the page, and there pre-prepped is the next set of words.
I forgot we did that.
Yeah, that worked. It was good.
So that was good. I gave it a little bit more of a live radio vibe, which was good fun. So yeah, more of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
More of that.
Yeah.
Coming soon from Unbound, War and Peace, the full audio version.
Yes.
With Gareth saying all the, horses. Are there horses? There's bound to be horses.
There's bound to be horses.
There's a few wars in there, isn't there?
Yeah,
Yes,
some explosions.
Yeah.
And some peace, apparently.
Yeah.
Yes, 50-50.
Just a singular dove for peace.
You can do the Foley of the bird poo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of the dove.
That's always a feature when there's birds involved, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you very much, guys. It was nice to talk to you, yes, on that lovely bird poo note.
Yes.
Thanks for sharing.
That's been lovely.
Thank you very much.
Enjoyed it.
you.